This assumption that most men normally have, especially when they are going to look for a woman to marry. So most of the men will tell you that they are going to run into the churches to go and look for women to marry from the church because number one, they assume that because we, as a man, I'm going to church, and so I expect also to marry a woman who is in church because we are going to be compatible. So there is that assumption that because we share a common faith, then automatically we are going to be compatible. And then later on, you'll come to realize after you have stayed together for maybe 2 or 3 years, then you realize that you are not even compatible at all. You start realizing that there are some of the things that you would have actually considered more than just looking at the church. So another thing that normally makes these marriages not to work is the couples may move quickly because marriage is strongly encouraged. Like you see, you are staying into church, and then the pastor keeps on talking about marriage, that and keeps on encouraging people to get married. Keeps on talking about, we are going to be having our youth service on such and such a date. We are going to have a marriage couples meeting on such and such a date. And so you sit down and you say, you know what? I think me and sister so and so have been dating for a period of 6 months. Maybe it's time we move on and we notify the pastor that we are a thing. And so you choose to go ahead and proceed with the marriage. And then only later on you come to realize, no, you know what? We're not that really compatible. We shouldn't have rushed it that fast. Some people actually, they do hide personal struggles to just guarantee or to appear that they are spiritual. Like you find you find a woman who is having, let's say, maybe 3 children, and then this woman rushes to just go and stay in the church, and so you go ahead and you believe that because she's in the church, then things are going to run so well, not knowing that she's actually there to hide her personal struggle. She doesn't want to show it off. She doesn't want to show that she's actually struggling. She doesn't want to show that things are not moving on well on her end. So she sits there and keeps on praising God. Sometimes even you see people crying. You think they are crying because of God, but they are crying because of the problems that they are having. Somebody's crying because he doesn't really know what the children whom she left back home are going even to eat, because maybe she left some little porridge for them to take. Now she's there in church and she doesn't even know what they're going to eat in the next meal that they're going to eat from. And so she starts crying. And so when you look at that, you say, you know what? Is so and so normally prays until you can feel the spirit. She prays until you can see the tears coming from the eyes. It's not actually, it is the struggles that these people are actually going through that is making them to pray like that. And so, but in your case, you might end up believing, you know what, they are so much spiritual. That's why they are doing all of that. Another thing, there are difficult topics like finances, conflict style, emotional health. We have intimacy, life goals, which might not be actually discussed honestly before marriage. So, because you see, you are always together in church. So you find that the only maybe period you can go and meet, and the church can even go ahead and discourage that before you move on together, and because you are people who are going in the same church, so the only time that you can sit down to discuss or to talk is when you are having those church meetings, church discussions, and all of that. So you find that right after you have moved in together, there is a lot of things that you never discussed. You never discuss on the finances. How are you going to be able to fund? Because the funny thing about marriage is the moment you get into it, then you'll come to realize that a month later or 2 months later, your partner is telling you, you know what? I am pregnant. And once that already comes in, then automatically responsibilities have shifted in. And so once responsibility shifts in, if you have not discussed on the issue of finances, you have not discussed on the issue of conflict style, if you have not discussed on the issue of, let's say, emotional health, the issue of intimacy, the life goals that your partner has, if that has not been factored into place, then automatically that marriage is going to be so much difficult. So a shared religious environment may help, but it does not actually replace communication. You need to communicate, because you see, it is good to marry from the church, but you have to make sure that you communicate. Also, there has to be some emotional maturity. This is something that somebody might not be able, okay, people might not tell you, but you must be emotionally mature enough to say, I am sorry, even if you have not, you are not the one who has wronged your partner. So most people normally assume that part. So also, there must be this part of accountability. You must be able to be accountable. And accountability is very funny, because it's all about explaining yourself on everything that you do. It's about even you might even end up explaining about your finances, that what, babe, I earn this amount of money, and this is how I've spent the money. So if you find that you are not going to be accountable in marriage, then it's not just going to be an issue of you talking about talking about the faith and all of that. So because once you have already clicked and you have decided that, let us stay together, then those are some of the things you should consider talking about. Another thing is attraction and compatibility. You see, are you really compatible? Because most people are attracted to each other, but the question is, are you compatible? Because you see, you might be attracted to each other because of the things that you do. I have seen even colleagues in their workplaces who gets attracted to each other, and then they think that now it is the right decision for them to make by getting married. They think that now marriage is the best decision for them, and even most of the colleagues or some of the colleagues might end up even advising you and telling you, go ahead and get married. But you see, you are being told to just get married to each other, but there are some of the things that you have not yet considered, because you haven't sat down to talk. You are moving because you are attracted to each other, but the question is, are you compatible for each other? So another thing that a shared religious environment can help in marriage, but it won't replace, is we have financial responsibility. So when I talked about financial responsibility, there is also what we call accountability. When I was talking about accountability, you should put in place the financial responsibility. You should be responsible for all the finances that you get. You should be able to account for them. You should be able to discuss with your partner your life goals and all of that. Also, there has to be conflict resolution. There has to be a way in how you can resolve a conflict. You see, not all the time you're going to have a conflict and then you rush to go and discuss the issue with your pastor or your parents. So not all the time it's going to work out like that. So anytime you sit down and you start thinking about marriage, you start thinking about how we are going to solve this, then you should just make sure that that one is not replaced. Your faith might align, but it should not be replaced by that. Also, we are having what we call mutual respect. You see, mutual respect is something that most people never like to look at. You see, we are talking about an issue which is very, very important, because respect is earned when you are outside there. It's not what your partner tells you when you are together seated inside the house. If your partner, for example, disrespects you in public by saying, my husband is short, you see, the statement might come out sarcastically and people might laugh about it, but it is disrespect to call your husband short, especially when you are in public places. So some church marriages also struggle because of pressure. Now, this is what the pressure that I want to talk about, because the church marriages, they will struggle because of the pressure. And the pressure that we are talking about, one of them is the pressure to marry early. The pressure to marry early. Have you ever been with somebody in church, and then because you have been interacting together, the pastor goes ahead and calls you and says, you know what, we have seen that you are really together with such and such a person, and so we are hoping that the two of you can just go ahead and get married, and even if it is the money that you do not have, we can help you guys to have a wedding. We can even sponsor the wedding so that you people can go ahead and live together. So we are hoping that we are not going to inconvenience you, but we would really love if you guys could actually just do what? Move in, that is marry. So you see, this is the pressure that is coming from one person or one partner might actually feel good about the idea, but the other partner might not be ready for it. Because when we talked about communication, it already meant that we should be able to communicate. We should be able to sit down and decide. The decision to marry should not come from one person. Because I, as a husband, I might want to marry, but then the person I want to marry might not be ready for marriage at the time. And when somebody is not ready for marriage, you should not force them, or you should not convince them into getting married. They have their own reasons why they are not ready for marriage at the time. And also at some point you might find a woman is ready to get married, but the man is not ready to get married. The man is not ready to marry at that time. So you cannot go ahead and say, you know what, you have already reached the age to marry, you should just marry, you should not be. No, you cannot judge a person based on his or her decisions. So once these decisions are being made, there should be a discussion that is going to be among all of you. There should not be that pressure for you to marry early. Another pressure is this, the pressure to look perfect. The pressure to look perfect. There are couples who are married. They appear in public as the best and the best of the best. In fact, the pastor uses them as an example. They tell you, you should be like such and such a person. But once they step inside the house, they remove those matching outfits. The husband sleeps in the bedroom, the wife sleeps in the guest room, and everybody in that house cooks for himself or herself. They are having the children whom they cannot stay with them because they have carried the children to go and live with their grandmothers because they don't want to look at their behavior. They do not want the children to emulate their behavior. They don't want their children to know that they keep on fighting. So somebody is in that marriage, but he is really struggling to just look perfect. It happens, actually. It happens. There's a lot of marriages out here. People will not tell you. People will not stand up and they say, you know what, we are always fighting. So when it reaches during the last minute, the very first thing that they do, you'll find that one of them will run away from the church. Why? Because now they get tired of this pressure to look perfect. They get tired of it. And so once they get tired, one of them runs from the marriage, one remains behind. Now you find the church member starts to follow up, asking this one who has remained behind, why is it that we are not finding so and so, such and such a person? And then all of a sudden, even the second person also ran away from the church. And if there are some people who are maybe living closer to the church now, they even change the places where they stay. You find if they were living in a rental structures, then they just move out. And then they go in a place where nobody knows them, and they move in a very far place. So they will even say, you know what, I rather keep on paying the transport to and from work daily, rather than sitting there and just hoping that this thing is going to work out. Another pressure you normally endure is the pressure to stay silent about problems. This is something that has killed a lot of marriages. Staying silent about a problem. You see, once a problem is there and you find that one of the partners stayed silent, because you see, this is what we normally say. There is this phrase that says that we disagree to agree. You get it? We disagree to agree. That phrase should keep on working in your marriages almost all of the time. If you find that this phrase is not working in your marriages, that like you have been trying almost all the time, but this thing is not working, then my friend, the only thing you should do, you should make sure either you try and work on that marriage or you should get out. So the pressure to stay silent about problems kills marriages, because you might stay, you see, this is what happens here. The partner might stay silent in the marriage, but then keeps on talking out of marriage. Like they having these friends of theirs. Men have their friends, women have their friends. So when they sit down, they start discussing each other. So you find a woman is discussing the man is discussing the wife. But when you come back inside the house, nobody wants to talk to each other because you do not want to cause problems. So it is better for your marriage to have problems than your marriage to be perfect. That is a fact. Let your marriage have problems. Let you people fight about issues. Fight about them and solve them. Fight about it again and solve it. Fight about it again and solve it. So keep fighting until it reaches such a point whereby you cannot fight anymore. And so if it has reached a point where you can't hold it, then it's better you leave rather than being caged in a marriage that is not working. So we are having this pressure of rigid expectations about gender roles. The husband has refused to wash clothes. The wife has said, I'm not going to wash your clothes. So you start fighting over that. It happens. It happens. The wife tells you, looks at you and says, you know what? I'm not your maid. If you wanted somebody to wash your clothes, you can go ahead and employ a maid. It happens out here. Somebody looks at you and says, you know what? I'm not your maid in this house. So if you want to go and buy food, you can go ahead and buy food and eat. Or it reaches even a point where it becomes so much worse because now the wife is not cooking inside the house. So the husband passes through a hotel, buys food, eats, and then comes back inside the house and sleeps. It happens. Trust me, it happens. And out here, people look at it as if they have the perfect marriage, but inside, nobody talks to each other. They are having this constant pressure. So on the other hand, many couples who meet through faith communities, they build strong marriages because they share values, they share the community support and the commitment. So when you marry in church, it doesn't really mean that you people are going to keep on struggling. No. But just like I've talked about the pressure that we normally have, and I've talked about what that religious faith that you share should not be able to replace. So we should also be, just like I've said, on the other hand, the couples who meet through faith communities, they build strong marriages because they share values, they share community support and the commitment. So where people meet is usually less important. Get it? And it's usually less important than, number one, who they truly are. Where people meet is usually less important than, number one, who they truly are. So you see, when we can meet in a public place and I am with my wife and we are smiling, we are very okay. In fact, you will see my hand wrapped around her. But trust me, once we leave and we go back, every person does it. You don't want to talk to each other. So another thing is that how honest they are before marriage. Because once you start now lying, once you start trying to prove to the world that you two are together, that you two are okay, when in real sense you're not okay, then automatically what you're doing is you're not honest. And also how they handle conflict. How do you handle conflict? Do you talk about it and you end the matter, or do you keep quiet and then hope that the other party is going to change? Because it happens. It happens where somebody is just hoping that the other person is going to change. And lastly, whether both people keep growing after marriage. Do you keep growing after marriage, or do you just stay the way you are? Because you find sometimes you have people who complain and they say, I'm in this marriage, but ever since I got in, I haven't even bought myself anything. That I'm feeling this pressure every day, every time. I feel the pressure. I feel this urge to talk, but I cannot. So if you find yourself you are in that type of marriage, then trust me. So a church can introduce people, but it cannot automatically create compatibility or character. So before you go ahead, you just look at a person in church. Okay? Before you just go ahead to look at a person in church and you marry that person. Before you look at that person and you marry, think about all those things that I've talked about. Because in Kiswahili we do say, umdainie ndiye siye